The Comfort Zone with Ray Comfort. Thought-provoking. Informative. Engaging. Are you ready to be inspired and equipped? And now, The Comfort Zone with Ray Comfort.
Welcome to Name That Tune with Ray Comfort.
Do you remember that? I can name that tune in 4 notes.
Did you name that tune?
Yeah.
I wonder what it is.
Yeah.
We hope you like glamour rock, friends, because
We just violated copyright.
No, it's legal to play that, right?
It is?
I think so.
You've got to comment on it. Teach on it. Teach on it. It'll be fair use law.
Right, that's what it is.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what we think about that, friends. Bon Jovi, back to the glamour rock days. We're on our way to work this morning. We were talking about this, and I'll tell you why in a second. And Eddie said about the hairstyles back then, they just kind of looked at palm trees and said, hey, that looks pretty good. Let's do that. A palm tree with a frizz.
That's funny.
So anyway, we're talking about glamour rock and Bon Jovi because one said Mark Spence ran into Richie Sambora, who kind of looked a little bit like, hey, Sonny Bono. What do you know? All right, Mark Spence, tell us about this.
It was, all right, I'll go to the end and then I'll go back to the entire trip because the whole weekend was a bit of a trip. I did a red-eye flight out to Indiana thinking I was going to get some sleep on the plane. Nope, there was one light that was on the flight and it was the person next to me. And I think he was practicing for a VO the next day. He was really loud. The girl in front of me turns around and says, I hate you. I hate you.
So she watches the show?
She was referring to the guy with the light on because
okay.
she couldn't sleep.
She really said that?
Yeah, she was.
how
People
funny.
were very upset. I got the giggles.
Why couldn't she ask him to turn it off?
Yeah, he just didn't get it. I think people are just too polite out there sometimes.
Perhaps he was blind.
Perhaps. But once I landed, I wasn't able to get any sleep. I went and I was able to teach for 4 hours, and I think it was just pure adrenaline. During the Q&A, I was asked a controversial question about baptismal regeneration, and I just answered the question straight out, and it got a little heated in the midst of it. A person feels that you have to be baptized in order to go to heaven. I said Scripture does not teach that. We're saved by grace through faith, and we started going back and forth, started dissecting some scriptures, and it went pretty good. The next day, I gave my sermon. He said, try to stick right around 40, 45 minutes. I went for 53 minutes. Yes, the pastor.
Ooh.
But he was into it, and I could tell that the people were into it, except for the people that left. And there were. There were people that left. Because I started talking about homosexuality and the objective standard and things like this, and I see this man stand up, going like this to his wife, grabs by the hand, at least I think it was a wife.
Right.
And they exited the church. And then there was a couple people that followed soon after them. And then we went out to eat. We went out to eat lunch, and while we're in there eating, on our way to the airport, somebody hit our car, and they tried to flee the scene.
Ooh.
And there were some innocent
Could it
bystanders.
have been someone that had heard you speak at the church?
Could have been somebody. I don't think so. I think they hightailed it out of the city at that point. But they hit our car. They tried to take off. Innocent bystanders stopped them that were sitting and standing by, and she ended up leaving our car, left a note on our car, and she ended up taking off. So that was just interesting. And then I get to the airport, and this is to come back home after teaching all weekend long. And this guy comes through looking like a rock star. You know why? Because he is a rock star, apparently. And I didn't recognize him at first. I didn't know who it was.
Who unbuttons their shirt like that anymore?
Besides Sonny Bono?
He's living in the 80s, man.
He does. Ray, did you ever
great.
unbutton your shirt all the way down and wear a cross like that?
I couldn't see the cross because of the hair chest.
I'd give seriously like 25 cents to see Ray do that.
Yeah, 25.
I'd like to see Tony Miana do that.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Tony's the only guy that can fall out of a plane, land on his back, and not get hurt.
I'm sure we'll be hearing from Tony on that.
All right, so listen. So Richie Sambora walks by, and I wasn't quite sure who he was. He was with a bodyguard and another individual. They go on the plane. They're sitting in the front row of first class. I enter into the plane, I grab my seat, and the girl who sits next to me says, I think I just walked by Richie Sambora. And I went, is that who that was? Now, I went to a concert, his concert, back in like 1988 or 89, maybe 1990. It was Bon Jovi and Skid Row before I became a Christian. So I was there rocking. Okay, I did not have the mullet the way you guys had the mullet and Kirk had the mullet when you were younger. I never got into that. But I was there and I was wearing my Bon Jovi black shirt. And here I am, I didn't even recognize the guy. And the girl next to me, she goes, well, let me Google it really quick. Yep, no, it's him. He's in the area. He's doing a little concert. He went to the Kentucky Derby. It's him. It's him. And I went, oh, hey, how cool. You know, maybe an opportunity will arise where I can go share with him. I'm not sure. Well, he exits the plane first. He's first, and I'm 16 rows back. And by the time I get off, I'm thinking, oh, no, he's long gone. And I take about 200 yards past the flight, and I turn around, and there he is. He's right there. And I lean over to the bodyguard, and I say, is that Richie Sambora? And he said yes, but not in clean family sort of ways to say it. And I went, oh, hey, how cool. Hey, would you mind if I got a picture with him? And he said, oh, absolutely. He said, hey, Richie, turn around. So he turned around. I shook his hand. We got a picture taken. And shook his hand again. And the bodyguard looks at me and he goes, where are you heading? And I said, Riverside. And he goes, Riverside? You sure you don't want to head the other way, the other direction into L.A.? And I went, yeah, no, I'm heading to Riverside. And then the third guy that was there, he's like, you don't want to go to Riverside. The traffic is crazy. Head the other direction. And I said, yeah, no. Good to meet you, though, man.
So what was that about? What was
I don't know. It seems to me that he needed a ride.
Well, why do you give him one to win this time?
Yeah, Mark.
So I take a few steps the other direction, and as I go, you know what? I think I have a DVD here of Genius, because he's been known to sing and to play some Beatle songs.
Oh yeah, I heard he was inspired by the Beatles, actually.
See, so I reached into my bag and I went to grab the Genius DVD, and I had a Genius DVD. I thought it was, well, I pulled out a Duggar's Favorites. I'm looking at the Duggars. And I go, yeah, that ain't gonna work. And I had the Genius DVD, and by that time, it was like somebody yelled fire, because it came that time where it entered into a 911 mode for him to exit the building, and so he takes off, and people are recognizing, people are trying to take pictures and stuff.
So tell us, you ran after him.
So I did. I went around the other side to try to meet up with him. He's got to come out this way. This is the exit. This is how you go. And he made a turn over towards baggage claim. So I went, ugh. So I go, all right, so I'm going to go back towards baggage claim. I went back towards baggage claim. And I go, where's he at? Where'd he go? And I'm convinced there was a partial rapture, because he disappeared on into the sky. I have no idea where he went. I didn't know where they went. I looked all around baggage claim, and I could not find any of them. So I grabbed my Genius DVD, and I said, this is for somebody else. I got in my car, I went to Carl's Jr., I got a chicken sandwich, some crisp-cut French fries, and a salt caramel shake.
And there he was?
And there he wasn't. And that was it. It was a missed opportunity.
Another Will Smith opportunity.
Okay, I'm not going to say that it was a Will Smith opportunity. Now, the Will Smith, I don't know if you're familiar with the Will Smith opportunity, but I was at a Laker game, and I bump into Will Smith, and Will Smith goes flying 20 feet backwards. Not quite 20 feet, but I did knock him down. And when he got knocked down, he jumped up, and I was kind of starstruck at the time. He had the Kid and Play hair. It was when his hair was like this long, way back in the day. And so I didn't share anything with him.
You
know,
didn't
I was a
say
new
it's
believer.
nice to bump into you or anything?
Nice to bump into you.
No.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing. But, you know, I shook his hand, and I went to the Laker game down this corridor. He went to the game. But it was funny, because not even a month later, I bumped into Will Smith again, determined to share with him that time.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What happened? You didn't.
Nothing happened.
No
I
Genius.
didn't share again.
No.
But I prayed, and I've been praying, God, open up a door where I can share with Will Smith again. Craziness. You know what happened in Indiana at my hotel, who I bumped into?
No.
Nobody of importance, apparently, who's on the silver screen. Nobody out there. But I do have that prayer. I want to bump into Will Smith again, this time with a gospel tract.
Right.
I do want to share with him. And it didn't work out. It was a failed opportunity with Will Smith. And I really look at it more as a missed opportunity with Richard Sambora.
Yeah.
But you can call it a failed. Okay, it's a failed opportunity. I failed. I messed up.
Good work.
So this sounds to me more like a case, Mark, of being quicker on the draw. And Ray, we talk about that sometimes. You know, I mean, you'll bump into someone and you're reaching in your pockets. I mean, the worst times for me have been when I'm reaching and I'm done, I'm out, I'm out of tracks, and I kick myself, man, I should have brought more, you know? I mean, I have had those opportunities where I chickened out and didn't give someone a tract or didn't witness to someone. Ray Comfort never has, right? Right?
I can't remember.
You pleading the fifth?
Pleading the fifth.
Pulling a Reagan move, huh? My memory's gone back.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, it's not like I get starstruck, or I'll see a star, because living in Southern California, we bump into different celebrities, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger listened to the preaching of the gospel. Ricky Schroeder was there. Sugar Ray Leonard has listened. We had the opportunity to give a gospel tract to John Travolta and Holly Hunter. So these opportunities arise.
And Roger Dangerfield's...
I went to give one, I went to give a gospel tract to Rodney Dangerfield, the comedian, and he didn't take it.
Roger? Did you say
I
Roger?
got his name wrong.
Rodney.
Did you say Roger?
I said Roger.
Yeah, it's Rodney. It's Rodney.
Yeah.
But I went to give one to his bodyguard. He wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Went to give it to the girl that was with him, wouldn't take it. And it was a very short time after that, I would say maybe even a month, where he ended up dying. And on his tombstone are written the words, "There goes the neighborhood." And I think, wow, there goes the neighborhood, and there goes a man. And what kind of a legacy did he leave behind?
Very sad.
And it makes us pause, think, what is the legacy that we are going to leave behind? What are our kids going to say about us? And I was up in Eureka, California at a cemetery one time, walking through, looking at the different headstones and reading them. And there was one tombstone that stood out to me more than anything else. And it wasn't anything written on there in letters that stood out, but it was a date. And that date that stood out was March 20th, 1972. The day and the year that I was born. And I found somebody that died on the day that I was born. And I remember thinking, anybody have any idea who this guy is, who he was, what he stood for, or even where he's at today?
And we need to redeem the time. And left.
Yeah. And we need to redeem the time because, the days are evil. You nailed it. We need to be ready for these encounters, have those gospel tracts, have the DVDs, have whatever it is, have that word to speak in season, out of season, right? There's only 2 times to be ready to share, in season and out of season, as Ray says.
Yeah.
We need to be ready. And if I was quicker on the draw with that DVD, undoubtedly, he probably would have taken it. But, God knows.
Well, we did see Elvis in one of our episodes walk past in the background.
The king.
But seriously, if I'd created humanity, I would have given them a pocket like a kangaroo so you could have a DVD ready, Spence. But it just doesn't work out.
Right, yeah. And here's the thing, friends. You need to just get back up and keep going. It's so easy after a time when you failed to share the gospel or maybe weren't as quick on the draw as you should have been. You just get disheartened, you get discouraged. Don't do that, right? You don't want to add to a missed opportunity by just saying forget and throwing your hands up. Just get up and keep going. Say, man, I'm going to be more eager next time.
Back on the horse.
Back on the horse, right. I'm going to be more eager next time.
Black Stallion.
Right.
Thanks,
all right, so we got an email that kind of ties into this. It says, I went to a Christian conference this weekend, and one of the speakers mentioned that they were raised in poverty in the Philippines, and their father found a gospel tract on the floor and got saved. And now they're saved. When they mentioned the gospel tract, they gave a definition. My father found a tract, a piece of paper that talks about God. It's so heartbreaking that she had to explain what a tract was at a Christian conference. Right. So few people give them out. There are so many lost opportunities, and people are racing blindly toward hell. What can we do to jumpstart believers into sharing the gospel? Have you ever thought, Ray, about maybe encouraging believers to share the gospel? Good question. That's what Living Waters is all about. But Ray, on a practical level, what do you do? Look, I've had people say, you know what, you guys try to guilt people into sharing the gospel, and you shouldn't do that. Others say, well, you need to just kind of persuade people to do it. Seriously, what's your heartfelt philosophy on this? Because is it possible to go to an extreme of condemning Christians, or is it just, hey, this is the truth, this is what it's about?
I use guilt. Always do.
With
always
no shame,
have,
huh?
With no shame at all. If someone's letting a kid drown in a swimming pool, I'd say you're guilty of not saving that person. So does civil law, criminal law. What's that phrase that we use? Yeah, it's gone from my brain.
Oh, the depraved
indifference. Depraved indifference.
Right.
That's what civil law, criminal law says you're guilty of. If you let another human being die when you can save them, you're guilty of depraved indifference. So we should feel guilty because we are guilty. We're commanded to love our neighbor as much as we love ourselves. Charles Spurgeon said, have you no wish for others to be saved? Then you're not saved yourself. Be sure of that. And if you're not concerned for your neighbor's salvation, I'm concerned for yours. There should be love in our heart. Love could never let a child drown in a swimming pool, and love cannot sit on a pew while sinners sink into hell. We should be like the Apostle Paul, as I ought to speak. He used that phrase twice, in Colossians and in Ephesians. Pray for me that utterance may be given him, that I may open my mouth boldly and speak as I ought to speak. We're like doctors with a cure to cancer. So every means possible should be used to reach the lost. If you're in a lifeboat and you're surrounded by people that are drowning, you can grab an oar and bring in 3 people at once, or just reach out a hand. And you know, Jesus had prayed to the Lord of the harvest that he'd raise up laborers and push them through the harvest fields. For years I've been crying out to God, raise up laborers, raise up laborers. But there's a tragedy, and this is the tragedy, it's a double tragedy. If you're not a laborer, you won't obey that command to pray for laborers because your conscience will condemn you in that prayer. So it's a double tragedy. Not only you're not a laborer, but you're not even praying for laborers, which you've been commanded to do.
Well, you know, the verse you quoted from Philippians where Paul talks about praying for him to have boldness, he said, and then he says this, he says, for which I am an ambassador in chains. And that's really the key. It's recognizing who we are. I just spoke at a men's conference this weekend, and we had a Q&A time, and one of the questions was, do you think every Christian should be involved in proactively going out and giving out tracts and witnessing on the streets and this and that? And I said, you're asking the wrong question. You know, the real attitude should be, is not, do I have to? It should be, do I get to? Or I get to, rather, you know? And that's the thing. We get to be representatives of the God of the universe. And there are no words with which to describe the honor involved in that. But aside from that, the ramifications for those who die without Christ. Now, we're not panicking in the sense that we believe we're the Savior and that our smooth speech convinces people. But compassion that should be a part of every Christian's heart, like Christ would look on the masses and had compassion on them, that they're lost and they're aimless, and God is able to save, but we're called to be his ambassadors and his voice to the lost. He wants to plead through us to the world to be reconciled to God. Right, Mark?
Absolutely. You know, I just came across a website with some really neat evangelism quotes. There's some from Ray Comfort on here, and you already just quoted it. You know, if you are not concerned about your neighbor's salvation, then I'm concerned for yours. There's another one here that says from Ray Comfort, give Mark Spence a raise. I like that one.
Okay, give him a cushion for his chair. That's as much as you get.
But listen to this one. This one is very, very convicting, by Dr. W.E. Sangster. He said, how shall I feel at the judgment if multitudes of missed opportunities pass before me in full review, and all my excuses prove to be disguises of my cowardice and pride? See, we are filled with reasons, excuses why we don't share the gospel. I was asked one of the questions during the Q&A at the conference that I just spoke at. What do you say to someone who says they don't have the gift of evangelism? And I said, gift of evangelism, where is that? There's no gift of evangelism. You know, we share here at Living Waters. It's like somebody saying, I don't have the gift of feeding the poor. No, there's the gift of the evangelist, and the evangelist equips the body for the work of the ministry so that they can go out and share the gospel. And hopefully the evangelist is sharing his faith as well. But evangelism is simply sharing the good news. And remember, it's only good news if it gets there in time. We need to share the death, burial, and resurrection of the King of Kings while we still have time. And it's today. Today's the time. Today's the day of salvation. We're not promised tomorrow.
You know, we're quick to point to the hypocrisy of the Levite and the priest walking on the other side when the stranger's been beaten up, the Good Samaritan story. And then the Good Samaritan pours in the oil and the wine, lifts him up on his own beast. That's a picture of evangelism. That's loving your neighbor as yourself. We're called to pour in the oil and the wine. And when we pass across the other side, when it comes to evangelism, we're playing the hypocrite.
Wow, that's well put. And, you know, we've often quoted Penn Teller on this program, who talked about how he, as an atheist, actually had no respect for people who claimed to believe in the reality of heaven and hell, and yet didn't warn others or tell others how they can be saved. And he said this, talking about, you know, someone walking in the path of a truck, he's saying, man, how heartless would you have to be not to tackle them at some point? And he says, how much do you have to hate someone to believe in heaven and hell and not tell them how they can be saved, if you really believe it?
Penn Jillette, it's Penn, not Penn Teller, but Penn Jillette.
Did I say Penn Teller?
The exact quote here, he says, how much do you have to hate somebody to not proselytize? How much do you have to hate someone to believe that everlasting life is possible and not to tell them that? Yeah, we believe in heaven, but we're not going to tell you about heaven. Go be warm filled, be merry, go your way, do what you got to do. I think we just define hatred, not love. We need to be careful.
And look, friends, you know, again, I know that the temptation for some of you listening right now is to be condemned. There is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. If you're guilty, if you're sensing conviction, that's good. There's no condemnation. And it's important to know that, because if you begin to get condemned, you're going to run the other way and say, forget it, I give up, I can't do this. But that's why Hebrews 4 tells us we have a high priest who can sympathize with our weaknesses and was tempted in all points as we are. Christ was tempted in all points. He was tempted towards cowardice. Yet he didn't sin, of course, but he has sympathy towards you. So what do you need to do? You need to run to the throne of grace to receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. We need to run to that throne of grace, repent, ask God to forgive us for our cowardice and our lack of compassion, and then get up, walk in God's grace, and go out and shed the loss.
Boy, it's so true, the lack of compassion. Think of the power of love to swallow fear.
Yeah.
Love is more powerful than fear. Perfect love casts out fear. And you think of the parent who, without hesitation, who knows a child that he loves is in a burning building, will run into that building without fear, because the love has pushed it aside. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to say, Lord, please give me the love. Another word for evangelism is love.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. And, you know, in our Ambassadors Academies, which we did for years, I often taught on that you know, the ultimate fulfillment of love when it comes to the greatest commandment or Great Commission is to give the lost what they need most, and that's the gospel. And so, yeah, friends, we need to really recognize our need to walk in that compassion and in that love towards the lost, and to let the Lord strengthen us. So on that note, as I mentioned, the Ambassadors Academy and the fact that we used to train people in this regard, one of the people that we trained has become a very dear friend of ours and a great partner in the gospel, our great brother Manuel, who's all the way out in Europe. And I want you guys to watch this video and see how he puts aside his fears in order to love the lost.
Yes, one, only one. So come and get your prize. And everybody clap your hands. Get your prize. Yes, it is the Bible. Come and get your prize. Finally, you got one right. Who here thinks that he's a good person?
Wer hier meint, ein guter Mensch zu sein?
Raise your hand. You think you're a good person? Are you sure?
Bist du sicher?
Okay. My friend Martin stopped counting because he has told lies. So,
Mein Freund Martin hat aufgehört zu zählen, weil er gelogen hat.
so how do you call someone who tells lies?
Wie nennt man jemanden, der Lügen erzählt?
Liar, okay. Second question, Martin, have you ever stolen anything?
Zweite Frage, hast du jemals was gestohlen? Jesus hat gelitten und ist gestorben, um die Strafe zu bezahlen, die wir verdient hätten, du und ich.
You broke God's law, the Ten Commandments, but Jesus pays the fine to the judge.
Du hast Gottes Gebote gebrochen, die 10 Gebote, aber Jesus hat den Richter bezahlt, die Strafe bezahlt.
That means that God can legally dismiss our case, set us free.
Und deswegen kann Gott legal dich freilassen.
Not because we're good people, but because justice has been satisfied in the death and resurrection of His own Son, Jesus.
Nicht, weil wir gute Menschen sind, sondern weil Gottes Geschenk, ein kostenloses Geschenk.
So I ask you all to please consider these things, because there is nothing more important than your eternity.
Und ich bitte euch, denkt darüber nach. Es gibt nichts Wichtigeres als die Ewigkeit.
And if you have any questions, please come and talk to us. We'll be here, okay?
Und wenn ihr Fragen habt, kommt ihr her zu uns.
Thank you.
Redet mit uns.
Thank you for listening.
Danke, dass ihr zugehört habt.
Boy, what an encouragement to see that. You
So
know?
heartwarming. In fact, Emmanuel was in one of the episodes where we filmed the Academy, and it's so neat to have seen him say, you know, I've never open air preached, but he came all the way from Europe so that he could get trained, and now he does this all the time, and he trains people in
Yes.
it. You know,
It's wonderful.
And God bless him for that courage and that boldness.
Yeah, Mark.
Oh, I love it. I love it as well. You know, Vance Havner said, it's not our business to make the message acceptable, but to make it available. We're not to see that they like it, but that they get it. And we use open air preaching to do that very thing.
You know, I got a quote here that's got nothing to do with anything.
Oh.
It's from Charles Spurgeon, and I read it this morning, and I thought it's just so good. To believe him that cannot lie and trust in him that cannot fail is a kind of wisdom that none but fools will laugh at.
Wow.
Isn't that wonderful?
Read that again,
I'll read
please.
it again for the
That
men.
is good.
To believe him that cannot lie and trust in him that cannot fail is a kind of wisdom that none but fools will laugh at.
Oh, I love that.
You know?
Where does this guy get this stuff? Seriously, it's like it's a machine.
He stole
My
it from
journal.
me.
He got it from Ray. Mark's journal. He had the gift of looking into the future.
You know, it's so good for someone to get saved and get straight into Spurgeon.
Yeah.
It's such a... the guy has got such a common sense along with his depth of doctrine, such a simplicity that so we can understand him, because that's the key to a great teacher, is someone who can say complex things simply. I can say
What'd you
simple
say?
things. I can say simple things and they sound complicated, but it's really good, seriously, when people come back to us and say, our children love your teaching.
Right.
We watch it with our little kids, you know, the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, and they just love it. And that means it's got a simplicity to it that can be understood by all. So it said if you've got a group of people that you want to minister to the lowest age group, because if they can understand it, others will follow.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And friends, what a joy it is to think that we have the ability to be instruments in the hands of God. Before I got saved, the worst thing that anyone could ever say about themselves is that they were used by someone. But for us as Christians to be able to say, I was used by God,
Oh, yeah, it's a
there's
great
no greater
thought.
honor.
Great
you know?
thought.
So anyhow, here's another tool of ours that will help you to be used by the Lord.
Hi, I'm Ray Comfort. I can't tell you how pleased I am that Master Books published The Defender's Guide to Life's Toughest Questions. This is because anyone can become a Richard Dawkins clone instantly by cutting and pasting off the internet and come up with a stack of questions to confound the average Christian. Questions like,
If God exists, why didn't he kill Adolf Hitler before he killed 6 million Jews?
Evolution scientifically disproves the Bible.
So why does the Bible condone slavery?
this book will give you the answers and show you that the rock upon which Christianity is built is more solid than the rock of Gibraltar.
Why are we laughing, Ray?
Because you said you love the background.
Yeah, that was some really cool background.
Yeah, we looked for weeks for that wall.
Yes. Oh boy, friends. Well, thank you again for joining us. We hope you've been encouraged today and stirred. And again, remember, go boldly to the throne of grace and just be open with the Lord. Be open with the lost. If you're having a hard time sharing the gospel with a friend, tell them, look, I'm horrified right now. I'm scared to death, but I love you. And let that lead you in. Again, remember to connect with us through tczlive.com, where you can watch the program live. Connect with us on Facebook. Look us up by name, Mark Spence, Emeal, Zwayne, Ray Comfort. And most importantly, friends, remember, we've brought you into our comfort zone to get you out of your comfort zone. So get out there and proclaim the gospel unto the glory of God.
For questions about the Comfort Zone with Ray Comfort, or to submit questions for future shows, please email us at email@tczlive.com. That's email@tczlive.com. The Comfort Zone is an outreach of Living Waters. For more resources to inspire and equip you to fulfill the Great Commission, check out livingwaters.com or call toll-free 1-800-437-1893. Now go and preach the gospel.